He said rate of return is number three in all the huge deals he saw done. It was control and Nate, what
Risk.
was it? It was risk mitigation. That was the two things that were always first and second, and then rate of return, came in there. But if certainty or risk mitigation was very wonky or scary or unstable, then it didn't make sense. And I think what Nelson realized on the 4 to 7 to 10 year long range thinking, because he thought like a forester, and you hear it when he talks all the time, is I'm not just thinking about me.
Always be asking ourselves, are we doing the best possible thing that we can be doing for this person? And I know without a doubt, we're doing the best possible thing that we can be doing for people when we're helping them get clarity on the things that are important to them and how we can position their cash flow to be in alignment with their values and the things that they. Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts, Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Nate, Brock, and myself are stoked to be here. We're always excited to hit record and start talking about whatever we've experienced over the past week or month or quarter. But this one today is going to be special for Nate and I because we just got back from the Nelson Nash think tank, which was our fifth in person. And if you count COVID year, it's our sixth. But I think it's important as we start off today to kind of frame out we never got to meet Nelson in person. We missed him barely. And one of the blessings that we see in our relationships now is that for whatever reason, the Lord saw fit to get us connected with guys who knew Nelson really well, who'd been mentored by him for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. Even in a cool roundabout way, Brock, your dad knew Nelson. We didn't even know he knew Nelson the way he knew Nelson until after conversations. So we had an idea to talk about something else today, but before we hit record, Brock goes, whoa, 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 whoa. He said, when I go to a conference, you guys grill me about what I learned, and we're going to do that with you. So, Brock, I'm going to pass it to you in the sense of you're going to kind of semi take over the DJ role, and you fire a question away wherever you like, and we'll go from there.
All right, sweet. We'll see how well I do being the one to ask the questions.
You're going to be great.
Nate, we'll start with you. What were probably the three biggest takeaways for you from this year's think tank?
The first one was I love the IBC community, the Nelson Nash Institute. When we get in that room, we just feel a piece of who Nelson was. And I think that's really important, is like being around people who were personally mentored by Nelson. We get a greater sense of who he was through that, and which really just kind of ignites that flame in our heart to continue to perpetuate his legacy and share his message and everything like that. So that was the first one, is just I love the community. Two is Nelson's wisdom is so underrated until you really start to dig deep into what he had discovered and what the message that he was trying to get across. There were a few clips throughout the week that they would throw up on the screen of Nelson in his later years and conversation and things that he was sharing. And it caused me to go to the Nelson Nash Institute YouTube page, and I found a playlist there, and it's Conversations with Nelson Nash. And it's about 35 videos, and some of them are 2 minutes, 5 minutes, all the way up to like 20 or 30 minutes long. And just to sit and listen to him, there's so many things that, even though we've read Becoming Your Own Banker many times, we've been teaching this and living this for over 8 years now. There's still so much wisdom in the things that he shares. And so that's the second thing. The third thing is Brandon and I had a great opportunity to be one of the keynote speakers this year. And from being able to share the things that we've learned over the last couple of years, And also the conversations that were had after that, I feel like we have a greater confidence in the value that we're able to bring to the community than we ever have.
That's pretty good.
Good, Nate.
All right. What about you, Brandon?
I'm going to piggyback off of Nate's last one. So one of our pieces of our presentation, we had a 45-minute slot, and the first 25 or so, we really kind of just spent talking about the last year or two, what we've learned, how it's been implemented in our business, how people like you, Brock, and your dad have impacted our thinking more than anything, which Nelson talked about a lot. It's all about how one thinks. And the only way we can challenge and grow in our thinking is to be around people who are willing to call us up in what we're thinking about and why. But one of the key pieces that really stood out to me is that there are a lot of people who want to share this and teach this and live this. But we polled the audience and we did basically, I don't remember what the slots were, Nate, but it was basically we wanted to get a feel for how many people in there were brand new. And the way we measured that was if you were between 0 and 25 policies sold, you were brand new, in the sense of like experience. And more than half the room was in that realm.
Wow.
And you guys know that we have a heart for helping others who want to help themselves. So that immediately encouraged me to keep doing what we're doing, because there will be many coming up, and it's very humbling when somebody says, "Hey man, I've been listening to your podcast." I'm like, geez, Lord, I can't believe somebody even get me out of the way. But that is like so humbling to hear somebody say that, and to even hear them say like, "Oh, I know Brock." I'm like, "Well, do you know Brock the way we know Brock, or do you know Brock from the podcast?" And they go, "Oh, I just mean from the podcast because I listen to you guys." And that was encouraging, kind of the second thing for us to keep doing what we're doing and to be so humble about it. And the third thing ties all that together is Nelson was emphatic that he wanted this message to go on, but not because of him, but because of the message and the truth. And Nate, I was listening to that playlist that you shared with me. And Brock, I'd encourage you and anybody that's interested in becoming your own banker in IBC to start listening to Nelson, because it is wild how the things he will say make you like stop and really go, I've got some gaps in my thinking there. Like there's some things I really need to lean into. But one of the things that he said that I really appreciated was this reality that this is about the you and me level, and this can work for anybody. And that's been mine and Nate's heart forever. Is like, if you're willing to rethink your thinking, lean into rethinking your thinking, and think about how you think, this can work for anybody. And that has been very encouraging. So I could go on, but it was a privilege to get up there and speak, and share our heart and pay homage to our mentors who were there in the background. One of them told me, he said, I was trying to hide from your eyesight, the light's all in your face and it's hard to see. And he said, because I was definitely tearing up. And I said, well, it worked because we meant it. So that's a couple of our key takeaways.
That's cool. What did you guys specifically talk about to the group? We'll go to
Nate,
you.
go ahead.
So the overarching theme of our talk was "You are the asset." In fact, that was the title of our talk, was "You are the asset." And we really wanted to make it sort of a two-layered conversation, where helping the advisor, because we're speaking to advisors, help the advisor understand how much of an asset they can be to the person they're sitting in front of, but also helping the advisor understand that they are their greatest asset, and the more conviction they have about what they are doing, the greater confidence they're going to have for themselves and be able to transfer that confidence to the prospect, the client in front of them. And so that was kind of the overarching theme. And then we had a fun role play exercise at the end of our talk around human life value. And what was really fun about that is there were several advisors in the room that really had never thought through what human life value was. And so we were able to help them sort of shift their perspective on what that means.
Yeah. And when Nate says what human life value really was, I think your experienced advisors in the room know what it means, but they don't know how to frame it with questions to work backwards from that. And so one of the conversations that I got to have several times is, and this is a huge compliment, Brock, to you, to your dad, to all the other people that we work with daily. They're like, where do you come up with these questions? And I'm like, we get around people who ask these questions. And it's very uncomfortable at first because it requires you to sit and think. And so we actually got to do a little bit of a role play. One of the guys that is connected to somebody in our group came over and had dinner with us at the house. And on a side note, Brock, one of the coolest things ever is my parents traveled to Alabama. My dad got to attend the think tank, and my mom got to come and watch us speak. And
well, he's actually one of the newest members of the 1847 financial firm that we're all members of.
Oh, the other guy that you're talking about?
Davis. Yep.
Davis, yeah. So we got to sit at dinner, and I actually walked him through off the cuff what it would be like if I were visiting with he and his wife. And he has some context about IBC, and he has some background about whole life insurance, and really a fascinating story about insurance in general. And so that only comes from time and practice, and time and practice is only put in when you're willing to decide if you really believe in something enough to live it. And so, Brock, one of the things I've always admired about you, and don't be getting a big head because I know you don't need it, is that you put in the work for learning and growing when nobody's watching.
Thanks.
And that is important. I want my kids to think that way, but I want them to be just as good at thinking about, is this in alignment with what God's called you to do to share him? Because if you work your tail off and it's not in alignment with being the hands and feet of Jesus, we're out of alignment. We're headed in the wrong direction. And that can be almost as costly, if not more costly, than slowing down and figuring out, hey, what am I supposed to be doing here? Where am I supposed to be bringing value to the world? So one other thing we shared, and y'all have heard it often, is I'm going to try to paint the picture of a visual. We had this on screen. It was kind of what's evolved as our, Nate, what would you call it? Our saying or our one-liner, or I don't even know how you would articulate.
Well, yeah,
I'll just explain it and everybody can listen.
The word that might encompass it is escaping me right now.
Yeah, that's all right. So visually, if you look up on a screen, inside parentheses, you will see DSB plus TNT plus SCA. So inside those parentheses is what Nate and I and Brock, what we can control. Do simple better and things that take no talent with small, consistent actions. And so we talked about that a lot. That's kind of evolved over the last 2 years from talks we've been a part of, from people we've heard speak, from the Lord working our heart. But outside the parentheses, that's OG, only God. He is the beginning of time, the end of time, above time, around time. He knows it all. And every time Nate and I start thinking that we're going to get outside those parentheses and start doing things our own way because we're in control, we're reminded that do simple better with things that take no talent, with small, consistent actions that glorify the Lord in our work and our worship is the best way to be, because he's got us. And so we walked through that and we shared that. But the cool thing is that visual relates very well to what Nelson said as his 5 principles also. Thinking long range, not being afraid to capitalize on the things you can control. And so we kind of paired all that together, and we encouraged the audience, which was mainly people wanting to teach what we teach, to put Nelson's framework over their business as a business model and go, how are you thinking long range? How are you working backwards from having a place for windfalls, which was Nelson's 6th principle that didn't make it into the book, because that's really succession planning. That's really planning backwards. And so if we build a business that way, what I like about that is we're thinking beyond our own noses. We're thinking about, like, I'm beginning to think, Nate, how are our kids going to be involved in our business if they want to?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to, what does that look like? Does that mean we pass our book of business to Brock if we think he's ready for it? All those things. And I mean that very humbly, that I've never thought about before. And Brock, you and I were in Arizona to start the week. And I was
Which,
sitting beside
side
Brent
note, if
Turner.
any of our clients are listening right now, we're not retiring anytime soon.
No,
as long as we're breathing, we're going to be here for another 20, 30 years.
But what I was reminded of, Brock, is hearing all that. You see how the Lord is always kind of giving you clues if you're paying attention. Because you had told me and Nate about what, oh shoot, I'm going blank. Vince, what Vince had told you about just, hey, I want to shift. And that really resonated with me, because you got a guy who could work as much as he wants to. Money's not an issue, those kind of things. And he's just like, I just want to not be in this same role. And I think that's the beauty of what we get to do is, Nelson said it this way. He said, I'm a financial travel agent. If you don't know where you want to go, I can't help you get there.
That's right.
But if I can help you figure out where you want to go, I can definitely help you get there. And maybe even more efficiently, with more peace of mind and more certainty than you were already traveling. And so that's been some key takeaways.
I like that.
Brandon, maybe we call our framework our founder SOPs.
There's Nate's creative brain taking off live. I like that. I like that a lot.
That's good. One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, Brandon, was something that James Clear, he's the guy who wrote Atomic Habits, said in a podcast not too long ago. But it was something along the lines of, if you have a dream, or if you're in love with a dream or an idea that you have, but you can't fall in love with the process to get there, you should give up your dream. And I think that goes along with that, because you can't just dream for something, but then give up all the process all along the way, right? You've got to love the process as much as you love the actual ending point of where you want to go. And I think that's super incredibly important for you guys. Now, I did not get to go, unbeknownst to Nate here, for any of those agents who Nate talked to. I wasn't there yet.
It was only like one or two.
I was actually I was on a family vacation, not illiterate about what was going on. But to that point, was there any speakers that really stood out to you guys besides what y'all spoke about, that you were just like, man, this resonates with us and where we want to go?
I'll jump out there first. Nate, I know you may use John, and I definitely want John to come up. So if you're not, I will. But if you are, I'm going to go to Dr. Paul Cleveland, who probably has more background in education and as an economist than anybody I've ever been around, as far as in person, besides maybe Dr. Bob Murphy. And he's up on the stage, and he and Nelson were good buddies. They knew each other for a long time. And he got asked this awesome question. So remember, all he does is educate by Ryan Griggs. Okay. All he does, he's a professor. And I would describe him, because I've heard him speak several times, as a professor who knows what the problem is with college education. That not everybody needs to be there, that not everybody needs to be wasting their parents' money, that some of them are there just to party and say they have a degree. Like he's got a good grasp on all this. But he's very blunt and direct about the responsibility at the you and me level. And he got asked by Ryan Griggs after his talk, he's like, what made it so hard for you to understand the value and the impact of what it means to become your own banker through dividend paying whole life insurance? And he said, my college degree. And I was like, holy cow, what humility to have a published author up there who's well known for speaking about, Austrian economists and what the value of it is. to just humbly say, and it was not, he wasn't being tongue in cheek in a bad way. He was being very genuine. He's like, my degree, because I had to unlearn all the things I'd been taught. Now, this is a guy, Nate, what do you think? Probably in his 70s? Close?
Maybe
Maybe. I mean,
something like
he's
that.
seen a lot of life and a lot of, you know, time go by as far as our world. And so it was a great reminder that the most dangerous thing that any of us can suffer from is thinking we've arrived. And that's Nelson's arrival syndrome, why he spent the first half of the 92 pages talking about behavior. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, I immediately thought about John, um, just because he brought something. He brought a conversation, but he also brought evidence of that conversation with him, as far as actually running the numbers and showing with some charts and things like that. How misguided the mass marketing message out there about get as much cash, high early cash value as you possibly can in a policy, and
Mm.
pay premium for the shortest amount of time that you can. He completely destroyed that argument.
He
And it was,
obliterated it. I
yeah, he
mean,
did. And it was really powerful to see. And it, I mean, we've had that conviction for so long. It didn't move me, but it still built my confidence to a new level in what
mm,
I already believe. And just reaffirmed all the conviction that I already have. And so it just strengthened that conviction for me, that because there's always, if if you're not if you're not asking yourself or questioning yourself from time to time, am I doing the best thing for the person that I'm working with? Then there's something wrong. Like, we should always
mm,
be asking ourselves, are we doing the best possible thing that we can be doing for this person?
mm.
And I know without a doubt we're doing the best possible thing that we can be doing for people when we're helping them get clarity on the things that are important to them and how we can position their cash flow to be in alignment with their values and the things that they love.
That's
Mm.
good.
That was
Brandon,
well said, Nate.
do you have anything to add to what Nate said about what John had to say?
Um, what I'm very grateful for from John is there are people out there who, and Brock, if I were to take a stab at who I think would have been your favorite talk, I would probably say John, just from our relationship and things I know that you enjoy. Um,
Yeah.
but what I really took away from it is it was matter of fact, but in a very humble way. He wasn't like, you're an idiot if you don't know this. He's just like, here it is. You do with it what you think is important for the people you serve. I'm not saying you can't do it that way, but this is the value of long range thinking and how that gets implemented over time. And
True.
I don't know about you, but why would you ever, if you believe this chart, want to cut off the ability to store wealth in a place that creates more value the older it gets?
Yeah.
And then he reverse engineered that to what it means if you cut it off quicker
Yeah.
and what's really happening.
Yeah.
And it was just so sound, confident, humble. Um, but I was reminded of something that Tim Urick said. He's at a coaching academy we were at, and it paired all that together. He said, the first most important thing to understand is you do not have to use whole life insurance to practice infinite banking. People try it through all kinds of avenues: checking accounts, farming equipment, leveraging land, whatever the case may be. So that's the first most important thing. It does not require whole life insurance. It just happens that Nelson wrote a book that helped you realize that whole life insurance will allow you to do those things more efficiently, with more certainty, with more control, with more liquidity and control of liquidity terms, those kind of things. And I
Yeah.
really appreciated that as a whole.
Brock, I think you'll appreciate this also. In one of Nelson's conversation talks on that plate list, he brings up the fact that in the book, he wasn't writing to demonstrate how you could put money in a policy and borrow it out the next day. He said, my examples show people capitalizing their policies 4 or 5 years. And he said, and ideally, you would capitalize it for 10 years. Now, if you have the mindset of capitalizing a policy for 10 years, but then an opportunity shows up in year 5 that is just too good to pass up, what a blessing. Because you've already positioned yourself where you have access to capital.
Yeah.
You didn't steal the peas, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Big shout out to John. John's the best. He's a good friend of mine too. And he is so articulate with the information and so sound in how he speaks about it and presents it, but also puts it all together.
Yes.
I know that he has put tons of time and work into showing and proving why having that strong base and for the longest period of time is so powerful over time. And, one of the things you mentioned earlier, Brandon, about how cool it is to have that, the mentorship or the long relationships with people who have had that relationship with Nelson Nash. And I think one of the most fun things that I like to share, and I think is really cool, is I've got this first edition of Infinite Banker, or Becoming Your Own Banker, from Nelson Nash that he gave to my dad in 2001, just saying, hey, to my friend. And I think that's just super cool. And all the notes that they shared all along the way within that. So I love seeing that, because having people around you to pour into you that were really just kind of pioneered that space is really important.
Yeah, next time we're in Nashville,
I guess 25 years. Yeah, I do too. 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's pretty wild to think about.
It is.
Hey, there was one other thing that John touched on that I think is important to say as a compliment to John, but also an aha again that I've heard him say before. But, normally we have to hear things multiple times before they sink into that long range memory. John, most of his adult life was spent around people that were spending large sums of money to make investments in the tech world. And it reminded me of what you talked about at your last Lifestyle Investor training, kind of you can't eat rate of return.
Yeah.
He said rate of return is number 3 in all the huge deals he saw done. It was control and Nate, what was it? It was risk mitigation. That was the 2 things that were always first and second, and then rate of return, came in there. But if certainty or risk mitigation was very wonky or scary or unstable, then it didn't make sense. And I think what Nelson realized on the 4 to 7 to 10 year long range thinking, because he thought like a forester, and you hear it when he talks all the time, is I'm not just thinking about me a year from now. I'm thinking about generations, 2, 3, 4 generations down the road. And I really think that's what Winnie and Imagine did a great job of illustrating, that if you're going to be great at anything, you got to be willing to put in the time and the consistency of being great at it. And that happens over time, not just by what we say.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that obviously I'm reading a lot of marriage stuff right now. And one of the things that it was talking about was the fact, like, in today's society, it's like people just think, oh, well, I found my soulmate. It's supposed to be perfect all the time. And, we're supposed to, it's supposed to be easy, and it's supposed to jive really well, and it's going to be this perfect thing for forever. But the reality is, like, there's no professional baseball player that's just like, I've got it all, I made it, or the greatest chef or whatever it else. Like, you have to put in the sweat, the tears, the blood, all the things. And it's like, it is at the exact same time awful and strenuous in a struggle, as well as glorious and fun and amazing and awesome all along the way. And I think that's the pursuit of life, all along the way within this. And so I guess to wrap some of this stuff up, the hottest thing that we talk about right now at every conference I feel like we go to is AI. So did you guys talk about AI while you were there? And if so, what did you guys learn or take away or get into? Nate?
So Nate and I had the privilege of being invited.
Yeah, you go.
Oh, go ahead, Nate.
No, you
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say there were no keynotes specifically about AI, but the mastermind that we got invited to, they shared some tools with us, but they weren't necessarily tools that we use to help clients. They were tools that we use to help ourselves be a better version of who we are so we can show up better for the clients that we work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite, I don't know who says this. We probably heard it multiple ways. You probably tie it all the way back to probably Proverbs or Psalms somewhere if you really do the digging. But, success leaves clues. And being in a room with Jason Lowe and Richard Canfield, who we, really appreciate their heart for sharing Nelson's message, but they're also very successful business owners, not just in the IVC world. I mean, they have, Jason has other businesses too. And the thing that he emphasized kind of through their high level training, focusing on business more than anything, is just the ability to recognize that we all have capabilities unique to us that are going to bring immense value to the marketplace, but we need to get really good at spending time understanding what those are and how to perfect them in a way that brings the best value to whoever we're working with. And so one of the AI tools that I can't wait to use, because I do this all the time from The Road Less Stupid and a couple of other things that we've read, is it's a AI brain dump. And so I like to write down brain dump, but I also am on the road a lot. So basically they built their own AI to where when it receives a brain dump, it starts helping you reverse engineer what you're trying to really get out of it and create a strategic approach to how to tackle it, but also helps you really realize that most of the things that get up here, if we can just get them out, 80 to 90% of them won't happen the way we think they will, but they won't create slush or bog us down, because now we know it's like, downloading a file that it's not holding memory there anymore, and we have it in a better place. So it was cool to see some younger agents do that and get to experience that. And I mean younger as far as years of experience, maybe not age. And just be reminded, Brock, that the things that we are getting to be around and exposed to through your masterminds that you share with us and through the little roundtable we did in Arizona before we went to Alabama, there's a foundational truth to all those that are similar. They may be called something different. They may have a different, acronym, but they are all guided and founded in, we have a purpose created, mine and Nate and yours words, in the image of God that we're supposed to be working towards to give him the glory. And the more we work on that, the better we become at sharing him through whatever avenue he's given us to do that.
Nice. I like it.
So
I like it.
Good stuff.
Well, Brandon, why don't you wrap us up? Anything you would like to add in it?
Yeah, one of the things that we learned the most in the marketing space is we had an excellent YouTuber there that's been doing this for a long time. And we got to visit with him at our table for an hour for lunch and watch him speak as a keynote. And we haven't done a good job of humbly saying we believe we can help you. And I believe that Nate, Brock, and I can bring immense value to anybody listening, watching, if you think we're a good fit. And that is a key piece, because everybody's not made to work with everybody. But there is no downside to reaching out, scheduling a time with us, reading Becoming Your Own Banker, bringing a list of questions to the conversation with Nate, Brock, or I, and seeing if we are a good fit. And the key piece to that is, and I'll leave everybody,
want to hang out with us?
I don't know, but they probably wouldn't want to, if they knew that. A key piece that I took away from the training also, though, is that if you don't give it a date and a specific time, hardly ever will you get it done. But dates and times for accountability register in our brain. So if you've been thinking, man, I can't find my rhythm with my finances, or man, I just feel like I'm overwhelmed with how to be more successful with how money flows through my life, or I don't even know where I want to go. See if we can bring value to you to where it could change your life. And as Nate says, what's the worst thing that happened? You learn something new. Best thing that could happen, you form a relationship that's a lifetime of generational impact that you look back on and go, only God could have created that. So we hope you have a blessed day. We love being able to share our time with you, and we'll catch you on the next one.